is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Welcome back to the show, man. Obviously, this is the process. Man, Kansas City, listen, I know we killed it last week. All the feedback, everybody's saying, man, one of the greatest shows we've had with Dante Hall, the X Factor, the human joystick was joining us. Man, we're going from wide receiver to wide receiver. And our guest this week, man, let me just cut it off. Man, this is one of the greatest receivers to ever grace the field at K-State, also here at Kansas City, man. Kevin Lockett, man, hell of a wide receiver, but also a mountain of a man when it comes to his service in the community. As a father, a mentor, father of Tyler Lockett, got some other Locketts on the way coming through the pipeline. But, man, this is the process, man. This is when we break down all the details, all those little small innuendos that people don't understand about what makes the Chiefs a championship team. So first thing, we're going to start off with the who, the what, and the where. Who are you? Where are you at as far as business? And then how can somebody actually get a hold of you when it comes to social media?
Yep, absolutely. So we'll start on the back end. Social media, not that visible. So you're not going to find me on Instagram. I'm on there somewhere. Don't do a whole bunch. I fool with Twitter a little bit. So Twitter is probably the best one, at KLock81. That's me. But in terms of who I am, as Shop mentioned, man, look, old school football player, got a family full of football players. Oldest son, Tyler, is obviously in Seattle. Got a middle child, Sterling, who's over at K-State playing wide receiver. And then got twin boys, Jacob and Jordan, that's playing with your boy Deacon over at Blue Valley High School. So, look, man, sports junkie, love football, love college, love NFL football. And then in terms of business every day, man, I'm on the investment side, founding partner in a venture capital firm here in Kansas City. Me and two other partners, we invest in early stage agriculture stuff. But, man, just enjoying life, man. Beautiful bride. Kids doing fantastic, man. Just loving Kansas City.
So successful businessman, successful father, successful football player, just checking the boxes as we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump into this, looking at the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Detroit Lions. Obviously, the Chiefs lost, 1-point loss to a hell of a Lions team. I think the Lions are going to be a team that actually make the playoffs. They're going to be relevant in the NFC this year. But again, a 1-point loss at home. After the banner comes down, after all the celebration, after all the offseason turmoil, we get news that right before the game, one of our top weapon, Travis Kelce, wasn't going to be available. I think the crowd, the fans, we had a lot of hopes that Chris Jones might have made an appearance, which he did, just not on the field. But he was up there in the box with his agents, and that got worked out in due process. But let's jump back into the game, man. Is there anything from the game that just jumps out to you as something that was a key factor in that game that turned out the way we hoped in Kansas City?
You know, if I'm looking at, like, if I'm a Chiefs fan, which I am, like, I would actually still be excited about what's to come for the 2023 season. I mean, you take into account that, you know, Kelce doesn't play, Chris Jones doesn't play, and he's watching from the suites. And you also take into account that Detroit is probably at least a 10-win team this year. They're going to be a good football team. And through all of that, we lose by 1 point, right? And so I think the point is, look, Kansas City's base foundation as a team is incredibly strong. We're going to be in every game. We're not getting blown out of games. And so, you know, when I look at that and you look at, you know, obviously the new X factor, Patrick Mahomes, we are always going to be in the football game. So from an encouraging standpoint, I would say, look, you know, through all of that turmoil, we still lost by 1 point and we're right there ready to win the football game. So I think Kansas City is going to be fine this year. I think there are some areas that we need to shore up a little bit. I know we'll get into the wideouts a little bit, and that's a touchy area for me, but it's an area that I think we need to fix. But we'll also, I think we need to fix our run game a little bit better. That'll help Patrick out in terms of his ability to continue to maneuver around, spread the football around to the wide receiver group.
All right, I'm going to rehash some of the things that Andy Reid said about the team. Obviously, he started off with just taking accountability. Andy has always done that from a leadership standpoint. It always starts with him. Hey, I got to do better at getting guys in position to make plays. It's kind of hard for him to take too much credit because I saw some wide open receivers. So he schemed it up right, but the receivers has to finish off as far as making the grabs. And specifically with Kadarius Toney. Kadarius Toney, too many drops on the day. He was the primary receiver as far as who was going to replace Kelce as far as the pecking order. Kelce definitely demands 10 to 12 targets a game. And when he's not available, it seemed like they turned the page to make Kadarius Toney the primary. And of this, obviously, as a team, having 6 drops is not acceptable, and especially at the points and times of the game when that happened. And then we also talk about the overall confidence of the team. He still remains confident. Patrick does, and Kadarius Toney, Andy Reid does, and all the wide receivers. So it's not like the Chiefs had open tryouts for wide receivers. Anybody who wanted to come show that they had a pair of hands.
Don't call me.
Don't call Kevin. Kevin say he don't want to get hit. But then there's also the offensive line, right? Juwan Taylor. There was a tell that they talked about of in his stance, giving away running pass before the ball is hiked by the depth of his back right foot. So there's more to be corrected. There's a lot of coaching to be done on this field with this game tape. And then obviously I'm going to double down what you said about the short yardage. There's got to be some answers that the Chiefs find over the next few weeks before we get to the crucial games in the postseason of how to get 1 yard, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, short yards to keep our offense on the field. The Blake Bell handoff, that's just not the most efficient way, I think, to get 1 yard. And so we got to be definitely better than that. Let me get some of your feedback about this rookie wide receiver, Rashee Rice, and what your thoughts are about how he handled himself during the game. And just overall, what kind of season should we expect from a rookie wide receiver?
So, first things first, look, Rashid was he, 2nd round pick? Where was he drafted at?
He was the 2nd round pick for them out of SMU, I think.
So, so here's the first thing. As a rookie wide receiver, the game is going to be incredibly fast for you, right? And so if you are not, let's call it a top 15, top 20 pick, then you're in what I call this sort of second category where there's still some things that you need to do to shore up in your game to catch up to the speed of the game. I think overall what I saw from him, I'm extremely excited about. I think he's got good size. He's got good hands. I think he did a good job of running routes and getting open. What people have to understand is when Andy Reid is scheming, he is scheming for particular people against particular coverages and against particular defenders. And so what you saw was he came into the game plan, obviously, to scheme for 87. That's what we all do, right? All right, and then all of a sudden 87 is down, and that's shifted over to Kadarius. Kadarius was probably going to come into the game plan as sort of the number 2 target, kind of playing that role Tyreek used to play, or maybe Sammy Watkins used to play, where double coverage rolls over to 87. He has one-on-one. He gets schemed up really nicely, has a chance to catch the ball on the run, make a big play. There weren't very many plays schemed up for Rice, all right? And so I always say this. You can't catch a ball if you ain't on the field. He's on the field now, all right? But you also can't catch a ball if they don't throw it to you. And part of what happens is when you go into a play and you are always the 3rd, 4th, or 5th read, it's going to be hard to show up statistically and prove what you can do. But if you go turn on the tape, I think you would be excited about what he has the capability of doing. And although I feel bad for what happened to Kadarius, that gives people like Rice an opportunity now to become a part of sort of the 1st, the 2nd, the 3rd sort of read. So I'm really interested in when he gets more opportunities over these next couple of weeks, what he shows and what he does with it. I think with his body size and his ability and his good hands, I think Patrick makes players better. Patrick can throw him open even if he happens not to be open. So I think he's got a bright future. I think the fact that he can go into week 1, touch the field, get that behind him in terms of being in the NFL, 80,000 people here, national television. I think he's got a bright future.
Yeah, it's been a while since the Kansas City Chiefs had a rookie just come on the field and play right away. There was a point in Kansas City where we had so many veterans, always as the 1 and 2, that a couple rookies might be fighting over, the scraps as that wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, but their role was also mostly just special teams.
Right.
Come support the special teams for a year or 2 and then prove that you deserve to play. But they've kind of pivoted off of that now and fast forward. And Justin Ross is playing, Watson is playing. Yeah. Scott Moore has a significant role. So we got a bunch of young guys on their 1st and 2nd year that are actually playing a lot of football. And MBS is now the savvy veteran in the wide receiver room, and he's the one who has to kind of keep the boat level and make sure that people don't get too high and too low. Right. And I think he's done that. I mean, he's always presented himself well down the field. When thrown to, he makes plays, makes big plays in big time situations. So I'm kind of, like you say, I'm with you. I'm curious to see if we don't need to push the panic button and get Kelsey out there right away if he's not 100%. let's take a few weeks to let these young guys, get some reps behind them and get some playing time behind them, because eventually, as the season goes on, whether it's this year or next season or years after that, there's going to be a time where this offense has to learn how to develop and play without Kelsey. Right. And we would love these young guys to have as much playing time, as many targets, as many reps as possible before we are forced to that time.
Well, and here's my belief. We don't have a true, what I would call, number one wide receiver. I mean, I take Kelsey out because they call him a tight end. He's really a receiver, but tight end. And in the past, we've always had that, right? So you had Tyreek, you had Sammy, who could play a number one. You even had Juju, who stepped in last year and could be considered sort of a number one. I don't think we need a number one solely for Patrick to be able to drop back and find a way to get him the ball 8 or 10 times a game. The reason we need another number one is from a defensive perspective. If they realize that we have a number one caliber wide receiver that they can't leave in single coverage all day, what that's going to do is put them in a box, right? Now I got to look at, do I double Kelsey? Now I got to look at, do I double this single wide receiver who can go the distance on any given play? And what it does is it leaves all these other young wide receivers that we're talking about in one-on-one coverage all day long. And so what you have is, who's going to step up and be like Byron Pringle did a year or two ago, where he's always one-on-one, and you have a quarterback like Patrick who can throw you open, and all of a sudden you look like a real solid number 3, and all you're really doing is beating man-to-man coverage all day because everybody else is getting doubled. That's what we don't have today. And so you take Kelsey out of the mix because he was down. Now the defense doesn't have any single individual that they're worried about that they have to double, right? And so now all of a sudden, where Kadarius might typically have one-on-one, now all of a sudden he's running one-on-one, but he's got the safety over the top as well. So I don't think we have the caliber of young guys yet that have shown and proven that they have the ability to be a number one or to beat double coverage. And that's why we need sort of, even if it's just a big name that still has some ability, that's what bringing a number one in does, is it all of a sudden takes pressure off Kelsey, it takes pressure off the other young wide receivers, and ideally it helps to open up a little bit of the run game because it moves people out of the box.
Yeah, man. So obviously having these young guys have more opportunity on the field, it'll put pressure on defensive coordinators we're playing against to develop traditional style defenses that now Pat and Andy Reid are used to getting. And that'll kind of help speed up our delivering process. Well, hey, as we talk about the process, man, that was a in-depth 10-minute version of what is going on with the wide receiver group. Man, real quickly, when we come back from break, we'll spend a moment of time on the defense. Obviously, I'm a defensive, so I got to give you my side of the table also, is what we need to do to cure up a little bit when it comes to these leaky yards on defense. But we'll hit that right after the break.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
Man, you're back on the process, man. Obviously, the process is always greater than the product. And I'm here with Kevin Lockett. Man, we chopped it up with the offense, told you about all the ins and outs, there's no reason to push any panic buttons here in Kansas City. We talk about the wide receiver core. And now we're going to flip the coin and go to the defense. So overall, Kevin, what is your feeling about the Detroit Lions game as far as our defense versus one of the top offenses in the league last year?
Yeah, I mean, when I look at the Detroit Lions, I mean, historically people have thought of them as sort of a losing organization, right? And if you look at the last half of last year and the way that they've opened up this year, I have to put them in the upper, call it 1/3 of the NFL, right? And so they actually have a pretty dynamic offense. I thought collectively our defense, even without Chris, we played at a level that we can win another Super Bowl with. We gave up 14 points, right? You take the pick six from Kadarius Toney, you move it off to the side. We give up 14 points. You give up 14 points for number 15 over here, we win 13, 14 games a year as long as you got him at the helm and we give up 14 points. So, I think, there's some areas up front, defensive line, maybe the middle backer where, we had some rushing yards that typically I would look at and say, man, why aren't we stopping that? Why isn't that a 2-yard gain, 1-yard gain? It's more like 5, it's 6. And it's not so much that I'm worried about that because I think Chris will fill in now that he's been re-signed. But what it really does is it keeps the ball out of the hands of 15. Look, we need 15 to get 12, 14, 15 possessions a game, right? Because, with those kind of odds, he's scoring 5, 6, 7 of those kind of possessions, right? That's 40 points, right? So again, I give him 14. I spot a team 14 at the beginning. As long as 15 can get 12, 13 possessions, I'm good.
I like that. Kevin's broken down to make it just a possession game, all right? Like, listen, do what you got to do, Coach Spags. Blitz them, don't blitz them. Do whatever you need to do. Just make sure whatever you do it fast and quick and gets the ball back to the offense. Hold them to field goals, be stingy in the red zone. And that's kind of been the defensive philosophy. Everybody talks about how aggressive we are as far as a defense, as far as blitzing defensive backs and bringing extra people, because we are trying to speed up the tempo, speed up the play clock, the passing clock for every opponent quarterback we're playing against. That is what you're supposed to do. You want the quarterback to be a little bit uncomfortable in the pocket. And obviously adding Chris Jones back to the mix is going to make him very uncomfortable. I love the way subconsciously, you might not realize it, but you blame the pick six on the receiver. As a receiver always would. If it touch your hand, you're supposed to catch it, right? That's the golden rule.
You know, if it's a little bit behind you or something, there's no argument I can make for this one. That ball hit him square in between his two thumbs and his two forefingers, and then it just took a crazy bounce and went the other way. And look, man, I've been there, right? Yeah. So I've been where Kadarius was in terms of maybe not that bad, but close. But to the point where I'm like, do not throw me the ball right now. And hey, look, man, I'm sure he's second guessing himself and second guessing his game, but you know he'll bounce back and he'll be fine.
Yeah, and then defensively, man, I listened to some quotes and listened to the post game report by Nick Bolton, and what he was saying is that overall, man, it's time to have a reality check. You know, even though the defense only gave it 14 points, he was so disappointed. He says after the game because he knew there was a lot of leaky yardage, guys where they hit the guy in the backfield and he still got to the line of scrimmage. They hit him for a 1 yard gain, and he rolls off the running back or whoever ends up getting 3 yards. And he says, when the game is going on, yes, it still ends up being a third down. It still ends up being a fourth down. But how many times is a 3rd and 3 becomes a 3rd and 1? And now instead of facing a passing down, you got to face almost an automatic quarterback sneak. And then they go for it on 4th down on the 17-yard line because it was 4th and inches.
Right.
If that would have been 4th and 2, 4th and 3, again, when you look at the film, there's on that 1st down and 2nd down and 3rd down, there's positions that our defense was in the spot to make a great defensive play, but there was 2 or 3 leaky yards given up on that series that led to it being a 4th and short. And I think that's the thing that linebackers get really frustrated with.
Well, you know, overall, like I think our secondary has taken a big hit in the past in terms of not being able to cover and not, you know, having. I was very impressed with the way that our corners and our safeties covered. And here's the thing that fans got to remember: that's without Chris Jones,
yes,
right? And so instead of covering for 1.7 to 2 seconds, you know, now they're covering for the full 3. And they still held up, I think, pretty well. We get Chris back and start to get more defensive line pressure, whether it's off the corners with Felix, who I thought played pretty well for a young rookie in terms of getting some pressure, didn't get a sack. All of a sudden, those guys that are covering on the back end, the time shortens up a little bit. And even with the extended period of time, I thought for the most part, they held up against a pretty decent Jared Goff.
Yeah, all the guys had great games. Our guy from the Dub created the fumble. Sneed played well. Watson, Williams, and then our safeties were hard hitting the whole game, whether it was Bush or Reed. Man, all the guys collectively that secondary really just focused in, and they had a great game, especially in the game where you said that you don't know that the ball is coming out.
Right.
So you know you got to stick. You got to be really, really sticky on that back end. So overall, that's it, man. That's offense, defense. 5 things, quick facts about the game before we flip to the next thing is. Number 1, we got a total of 10 pressures in that game, which without Chris Jones is phenomenal. Like you said, from some guys, Mike McDana and the crew, the Greek Freak, all those guys really showed up and really had a great game. 11 different receivers. Pat Mahomes, I think this is only the 4th time in his career where he's actually completed the ball to 11 different receivers in one ball game, which is, I mean, undefensible.
Yeah.
Especially
he spread it out like that.
And that's with the drops.
Right.
Number 3 is we had so many chances in that second half to really win the ball game. And that's probably what's the most disappointing thing is that we all know the first half is just playing the game, kind of like feeling each other out, you know, kind of jab. And then that second half, when you got a chance to knock somebody out or really put them on their heels, we had the ball first coming out at halftime. We made our adjustments. Not scoring that first drive kind of gave the Lions a little bit of a, we still here.
Yeah.
We okay. You know, like we could be down double digits or 2 possessions, but you know, we kind of took the Chiefs' best shot and we still here standing. So let's go try to make some plays. And I think that, that mentality let them hang around long enough. Obviously, you got to give Coach Dan, you got to give that coaching staff, him and AG, Aaron Glenn,
Yep.
the mindset they had to come in here and win in their own head. Thursday night football season opener, they definitely did that. And then the last two things was just uncharacteristic mistakes by our team. The pick six, the drops, the false starts and holding penalties. Just, man, they're drive killers, and we can't do that. And last but not least, man, listen, whatever we got to do, we got to be prepared that every team that plays us, you got to be prepared for fakes, fourth down going for it. So, like, that's just got to be a mindset our defense needs to be in. Don't come off the field on third down. You're not on a normal team because, like you said, one of the purposes of the way we play defense is we want to create double-digit possessions for our offense. Yep. We have always had one of the best offenses when it comes to points per possession when you talk about over the complete season. So if the opposing team always has to try to find ways to steal that extra possession away from Patrick and our offense. And so we got to just be totally aware of that, man, totally aware of that. All right, so right now, man, obviously you said you was involved in investment banking, doing portfolios. Somewhere you're making a lot of money doing something for a lot of people. But let's talk about, so I always talk about fantasy, man. We get into fantasy. Yeah. How is the market on players? So just like in the real world, you invest money in the stock market goes up and down. When it comes to fantasy football, man, there's a rise in the market, and you want to make sure you sell high. Then you want to buy low. You want to buy when somebody is like not one of the trendy guys, but did you see something in their future? Is there any players around the league who you think, if you was doing a fantasy league, that you would sell high or buy low?
Man, so let me start with this. I stopped playing fantasy about 5 years ago, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because of all the noise that get talked in the background, which I love to be a part of. Yep. My team's so bad, and they were so bad that I could not take the discussion over and over. Now, in terms of, let's call it young, underrated kind of players. Mm-hmm. I forget his name. I know it starts with a P, but I like the young receiver that put up, 10, 11 catches against Seattle for the Rams. Who stepped in.
I can't pronounce his name.
Yeah, and he came from BYU.
Pakua.
Yeah, Pakua, something like that. 5th round pick. And I mean, he had 15 targets. Now, when Cooper come back, those targets are going to get knocked down. But what he did is he got the belief of Matthew Stafford. He got the belief of the head coach. And so now he's going to be a 7 to 8 target per game kind of guy. Yeah. And I think what he's going to do is he's going to be a little bit different of a Cooper Kupp, but he's going to work in that intermediate kind of range. And so him putting up, especially if you're in one of those leagues where you get points for the catch and points for the yard, he's going to be a guy that's going to be 7 catches, 75, 80 yards, one of these 15, 16-point guys every week. And that's without scoring a touchdown. So, like, he's sort of low-hanging fruit to me. I can't think of anybody else right now off the top of my head.
All right, so Dobbins, Dobbins goes out with the injury, right? He's done for the season, Achilles injury. So the next up, as far as the running backs for the Ravens, you got Gus Edwards, or then you got Justice Hill. So you got a two-headed monster that they played well, obviously, in the game they played. They still won the game, but, when you got your main guy, who gets carted off due to injury, and you got other guys coming up, making a move, making a trade for a guy like that. Maybe let's talk personal. Let's talk about your son. Let's talk about Tyler. Like having JSN come into the scene as far as Seattle, already having, DK being a mountain of a man as a wide receiver. And look, Tyler's always been one of the most consistent wide receivers you can find. His numbers don't lie. Over the last 8 or 9 years, you're going to get like top 15 wide receivers numbers each and every year. And he doesn't do it Hollywood style. He's not, on social media dancing around all the time in the end zone. But at the end of the year, you look back and you got quality numbers. So I know he was, coming back off of a concussion, but he actually entered back into the game.
Yeah. Yeah, so let me go back to Baltimore. So I'm going to pick Justice Hill right off the top just because he from the high school. He from the cricket. All right, so I'm going to pick Justice right off. I mean, look, I can go through the league and pick a number of high school cats that played at our high school that's still playing. You be like, seriously? So Justice will step up. All right, so that's one. But I like low-key, I'm actually kind of glad Seattle lost. And I'm kind of glad they got blew out because everybody came into the season with this idea that, like, man, you got DK, you got Tyler, and now you add Jackson to the group, like, they're going to be uncoverable, right? And so my opinion, I think the offensive coordinator got a little big for his britches, right? So he came into the first week, I'm going to make sure DK get 3 or 4 early in the game, and then I'm going to get us to Tyler for 3 or 4, and then I'm going to get Jackson going and all that. Yeah, he got blown out. They didn't do that. 190 yards of total offense, 3 yards in the second half. All right, so, I'm kind of low-key glad it happened that way, because then, as human beings, what do? We revert back to what we know. And, man, look, let me get the ball to 14 and the 16 because these dudes can go to work, and let me settle Geno down and get the run game going back. And let's work Jackson in wherever we need to work him in. No disrespect to him. Young guy, he going to be a good player. But all this trying to force him the ball and move him around and put him in the spots where you call him to play for him, and we got time for that. Y'all put up 13 points. All right. So I'm hoping that going into this week, we see a difference. Here's the deal. They got to play the line. And they ain't no joke, right? And so, I talked to Tyler after the game. He all fired up, and man, why didn't you say something during the game? He said, because they had me mic'd up. Okay, well, I got it.
Always thinking ahead.
Yeah, he said, but, Sunday at 6 o'clock, when all of it came out, I had a whole lot to say. So, I still think, look, man, he's a stat stuffer. He's going to continue to put up stats. The thing about him is he makes the most of his opportunities. I can't remember what it was last year, but 100 targets, 82 are catchable, and he catch 80 balls, right? So, like, that's what he does. He makes the most of every opportunity. He's not worried about all the glamour and the limelight. And so, you may have some peaks and valleys. Like this week, he might have got you 1 point, but he's consistently going to be a 15, 16-point fantasy guy.
Always. And we're going to use what you just said, man. Like you said, he wouldn't talk trash because he was mic'd up. But there are some NFL players that actually do talk a lot of trash. I'm going to get your feedback on what you think about this. Trash talking after the loss. Let's talk about, first of all, we just lost to some L's.
Cincinnati.
Right, Cincinnati.
Jamar
Chase. He called all week long, man, we can't wait to be playing these L's, talking about the Cleveland Browns, call them the Cleveland L's, all, and then go out there and they poop their cap. Cincinnati got embarrassed, man. Listen, OBJ, good riddance. Now he ain't here no more, man. The defensive line, Garrett, man, those guys they was in the backfield. Joe Burrow didn't have a chance, man. I don't know if he's still a little injured, a little battered, beat it up. I don't know if that new contract weighing down his pocket, or that big money in his pockets weighing him down, wherever it is. Man, that was a sad start of a season from a team that has so much promise. Everybody's picking the Cincinnati Bengals to come out of the AFC North. Yep. So yeah, what do you think about that?
That was my number 1 rated most disappointing performance throughout the entire NFL this past week. And it's a number of reasons why, but I mean, my favorite play was Jack with the crossover hezzy that he gave to the center.
The whole offensive line.
The whole offense, and then they rush 3 and he's still getting the Burrow. So
immediate.
Yeah. And so
immediate pressure.
So that to me was the most disappointing performance. But it's almost like Seattle, like that's gotta be a gut check where they all go in the mirror and go, you know what? We can't just put our pants on, walk out on the field, and be guaranteed that we're going to get 12, 13 wins. And so, I think the light bulb will come off, and they're incredibly talented, right? But you know how it is, man. Everybody in the league can play. You start talking down on people, calling them elves there was probably some pissed off folks in that Cleveland locker room, right? Mm-hmm. And then you have the whole thing. Everybody wants to hate on Deshaun, and they don't want Cleveland to win. And, man, look, they're sneaky good. Like they shocked me a little bit in terms of when I watched them. They pretty good. Tampa was the same way. I thought, you know what? Brady's leaving, and I've never been like a crazy Brady fan. I respect him to death, right? He put up points, and he knows how to win. But like they down there and they put out a good game plan, and they snuck out of there with a win. And all of a sudden, you got to look at Tampa and be like, man, that NFC South is like. I was ready to just kind of hand it over to New Orleans and figure they're gonna be, but. That's going to be an interesting conference as well.
Yeah, I heard they calling it Tampa Mayfield now.
Yeah.
It's always coming up. Tampa always come with a nice name for the quarterback. That's a quarterback-driven division. Ain't no quarterbacks in the division, so there's always ability for a quarterback to come in and win it right away. Right. The other guy here was DJ Moore. DJ Moore, he went one-on-one with Jair Alexander, the cornerback for the Packers. They kind of got to shoving a little bit. And then after the game, Alexander was asked about it. He said, well, the stat line was 2 for 25. He says, yeah, it was a real quiet day for him. He said, he got all this stuff he want to talk about as far as me hitting somebody, but 2 for 25. That's a real quiet day.
So this is always my problem with trash talking. Like, you put yourself in a position where you got to back it up, right? So my man Prime in Colorado, he all over the place right now, but he backing it up.
Yes, sir.
He winning, right? And so that's the deal about it. If you going to talk, man, you got to stand in front of that camera afterwards. And so my man Ja'Marr Chase, he doubled down. He go into the post-game interview, and he still calling them L's. All right? Like at some point, you got to back off of it. And so, I love the trash talk. I was always a part of it, right? I loved it. But that's a part of the game that I really wish the fans could actually understand and get closer to, because a lot of the things that get said in between plays, right after plays, like, man, that's what drives you to want to play the game.
Man, all right. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. Obviously, you're listening to The Process, which is greater than the product. My man, Kevin Lockett. When we get back, just to tease you a little bit, we're going to talk about some things off the field as far as mentoring, as far as motivating, mindset, the things that helped him create the Tyler Lockett's, the Sterling Lockett's. He has a house full of wide receivers that played at all three levels. We'll get back to you. This is The Process.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
Football is back in full swing with another week of epic games, and who's got you covered on the action for every single one of them? That's DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. And new customers can bet $5 on football and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Nobody's missing out on the action, as all DraftKings customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every game day this September. Get in on NFL Week 2 action with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now and use code KCSN to sign up. New customers can bet just $5 and take home $200 instantly in bonus bets only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code KCSN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus age varies by jurisdictions, void in Ontario. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply.
Man, welcome back to The Process, man. Obviously, the process is always greater than the product. You hear us say it over and over because it matters. It's true. Again, my guest this week, man, is Kevin Lockett. Kevin, we're just going to go really quick, man. I'm going to go team by team, and we have a little segment called, are they contenders or are they pretenders? So when it comes to them being a team, when it comes to the playoffs, do you think this team's going to contend for a championship, or are they right now just playing pretenders? All right. First team, I'll say the Dolphins. They're contending. Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill put up 200 and 2 touchdowns to start off the season. How about the 49ers?
Big contender. Man, look, man, all that money they spent on their defense, and then they got the cheapest quarterback in the league who still, man, big time.
CMC goes for 200. So you talk about offensive player right now who's going for the MVP. I don't even know if there is a quarterback in the running right now. It's somewhere might be between Tyreek Hill and CMC when it comes to those two teams. How about the Baltimore Ravens?
Yeah, pretender. I like where they at. I like my man Lamar. I like some of the acquisitions they made, but man, without a running game, Lamar, and you put all the passing on Lamar, that becomes tough.
Yeah, Dobbins got hurt. Stanley got a little injured. Another one of their offensive linemen got a little injured. One of their safeties, Williams, got so they fighting that injury bug really early in the season to still be able to come out of that North, which is one of the toughest divisions. How about the Eagles?
They contender.
Man, they had a rough start against. They came out for the first 2 possessions and went up 14, 16 points really quick on the Patriots. And then the Patriots settled down. There was a lot of dysfunction almost when it came to the Eagles offense for almost the entire second half of the game. And they kind of snuck out with a victory when you talk about playing it.
But you know what? Patriots are a little bit better than I think people giving them credit for. They're actually going to be probably an 8 to 10 win team this year. They're pretty good.
Yeah, people had them kind of down. I had the Jets on here, but
they're pretending.
They're pretending now, huh? Even with the win, even with the felt good.
It does let you know that Saleh is building something that's long standing, right? And so you always say, look, man, one player can't determine our future, but in this case,
Snake McCullough.
They might be done this year.
No Aaron Rodgers. All right. How about the Falcons?
And I like BJ. Look, hey, man, that move he made on the little screen pass.
Yes, sir.
Hey, look, I ain't seen active legs like that from a running back in years. And he is going to be dynamic. But then you always worry about, are you going to waste away his years? What's my guy that came out of Georgia several years ago? What's his name? That was the elite back that was supposed to be all world. He came out with Tyler. I forget his name, but 6-7 years in, it's like you done forgot about him. So I worry about them wasting his future. But man, he's elite.
The league uses up running backs the way. I mean, it's true. They chew them up and spit them out, and running backs is not for long when it comes to NFL.
Right.
How about those Bengals, man?
Look, man, I still think that they contenders.
Who that?
But man, that performance,
Tough
that
start.
pretender. Look, I like Carr, man. I like it, but man, look, there can only be so many contenders. I mean, look, think about it. At the end of the day, you really talking about 5 or 6 teams that got a chance to win the Super Bowl. So let's be out.
Yes. All right. Dallas Cowboys, Big D, 40-0, 40-0. They go against the Giants, 40-0.
Look, man, that was impressive. So based on that performance, I'm gonna have to give them contender.
Yeah.
I think if I'm going off of history, week 12 or 13, they'll become a pretender.
All right, let's talk about tough starts to the season, the Buffalo Bills.
Pretender. I think that whole empire is about to bust down. You got Diggs whining again. He always whining. And then you got that performance by Josh Allen, which people will say that's uncharacteristic. I won't be surprised if he in the top 5 or 6 quarterbacks this year in terms of picks. I mean, I think that thing is about to fall apart up there.
I think losing Dabo was something that people didn't realize how much that was going to affect his overall performance, because that quarterback position was almost hand-built, customized under Dabo. And now, even though, somebody else can try to run his offense, you just don't have the same set of eyes on that quarterback position. 3 more teams. Let's go with the Packers under Jordan Love.
I like what he's doing, but they pretender. This year, they just not. I don't see them winning a championship.
All right, let's go with the Chargers.
I like. Look, man, I like what they do, but again, they just 7 to 10 wins. If they get in, they're gonna lose first round. They not gonna win a championship.
Last but not least, the team that beat us, man, these Detroit Lions.
I don't
store the roar.
I can't say that they're a contender because I don't see them winning the Super Bowl. But what I do see is they will be in the conversation. They will be a postseason team, and they will be somebody you don't want to face in the postseason based on the way that they play. Quarterback that gets it out of his hands very quickly, defense that's rugged and hits you in the mouth. People don't want to see that.
Man, before we go into fatherhood and mentorship and everything, is there any team that, obviously everybody is saying these are the 3 worst teams coming in. We talk about a lottery pick for the 2024 draft. You got the Arizona Cardinals, which everybody feels taken to try to get Caleb Williams. And then you have like the Carolina Panthers, the Indianapolis Colts. Is there any other team that might be, less than 2 wins, 3 wins, or, a subpar season that could be with one of those early draft picks?
The Cardinals might go 0-6-17, man. I like that right there is the worst team across the league. And you know what? I do think that they have plans to go after Caleb Williams, because I think in their mind, look, if I'm a GM, how do I get rid of this quarterback that's been a nightmare for me that I just paid all this money to? Can I trade him? Can I get some picks for him, get some talent for him, go get Caleb, and just sort of reset, because he's not what they thought he was going to be. And I think the trade market for him is going to be tough. I'm not sure that there's something there, but I don't see any other team that's just that bad. I do see 4 or 5 teams at the top. I see 2 or 3 that are at the bottom, and I see a bunch of teams, 20 or so teams that's just sort of in this mix where you wonder, what are they going to do? Seattle, Dallas, teams like that, Cincinnati, where it's like, what are they going to become? But there's clearly still, you got your Chiefs, you got your Eagles, you got your high-flying teams, 49ers, that they're going to be in the conversation when you get down to the divisional championship.
And what makes the NFL so interesting is that every year there's always one team out of that middle mix that gets hot.
That's right.
They get hot and they start, the offense start clicking, defense start making plays, and before you know it, at the end of the year, that's the team that nobody wants to play.
That's right.
And it could be a team like Tennessee, right?
Yep.
With D-Hop on offense as a receiver and Derrick Henry, if they start playing the defense that they know they can play, that's a team you just don't want to see in the playoffs, because they play that style of, they control the ball. Coach Verbo, like he's a tough mindset type of dude, and you always got to worry about a team like that coming at the end of the season starting.
And that's what I wonder if Dallas can be that team. America has wanted Dallas to be that team, but when I saw that performance this past weekend, they have the potential. If Dak doesn't turn the ball over quite a bit and they rely on that defense, they might have a chance to be that team that emerges out of the middle of the pack and actually show something in the postseason.
And good stuff. All right, man. So we're going to pivot right now, man. We're going to go into, majoring in manhood. How do a guy like yourself, myself, collectively, you have 4 boys, I got 5 boys. We got 9 boys in between us. So there's got to be some type of knowledge, some nuggets about raising young men. All of our kids are athletes. You have a guy in the NFL. You have a guy at K-State. You have a guy who's in high school, or 2 kids now in high school playing football at a high level. I have a son that just walked on at Kansas and then went to play baseball with the Royals. I have a 9th grader who's a teammate of your son. I had a kid who won 3 state championships at my age here locally, my oldest son. And then of all these kids, my youngest might be the most feared, Killer Cade. He might be the most.
Aaron Donald at 10.
Aaron Donald 10.0 coming in a few years. But, I mean, what are some of the resounding sentiments or maybe some nuggets of what are you telling your kids as far as their attitude, their mindset, as far as just whether it's baseball, basketball, football, no matter what the sport is, what is the common thread of how you tell them to prepare themselves to compete?
I think, the thing for me is like I've always been opposed to this idea of like living your life through your kids, right? And I'm thankful that I got to play at the highest level, same with you, so that I don't have to be in that kind of mode. But for me, what I'm really big on is this idea of, look, my job is to introduce you to sports and to all of these different sports. And then it's my job to step back and let you decide what you like, what you don't like. I'm thankful that my kids like everything and they're playing something every single season. But it's also my job to prepare you to compete in real life. And so what I mean by that is like, I just have this mindset with my kids that's like, look, we can play rec ball if that's what you want to do. But if you tell me you want to play at a higher level and you tell me that I'm going to show you what it takes, and you may not like it because you may not get to do the things that your friends get to do, right? I'm in their own video games. Why I got to go out to the field and do some extra work? Because you told me this is what you want. So my job is, the way I see it is, expose them to everything, prepare them for what they say that they want. But at the same time, the moment that I get any inclination from them that that's not what I want, it's my job to move from mentor/coach to more of father. Yeah. Because ultimately what's most important here is for me to have a collective and an individual relationship with each one of my boys. And if I don't have that, then I failed as a father. And so for me, it's mostly about, look, I have to have a relationship that's so deep with them that it goes beyond, because sports is going to die at some point. It's going to be over. And so I want them to know, look, I'm not letting my dad down if I decide I don't want to play football anymore, or if I'm not competing at the level that he says, or if I say to him, hey, I just want to play rec basketball. I don't really want to play AAU anymore. And so that balance between like father and coach is tough, because for me, I coached every one of my kids up until they were probably 13, 14 years old. That's in basketball, that's in baseball, and that's in football. And from one end of it, I did it from a protection standpoint, meaning if you're going to play something, I want you to learn how to play it the right way. And so football was probably the biggest one that I was adamant about coaching, because I wanted them to get the right technique, understand how to take your head out of the tackle, understand how to protect yourself on offense. People get on Tyler all the time because they like, man, you don't have no yak. You don't have no yards after the catch. And he'll tell you in a minute, look, man, my dad taught me a long time ago, look, man, you're not big. Get what you can get. When people get around, just go down on the ground. Let a fight another day. I said, because the best ability is availability.
Always.
And if you in the tub, can't make the club, right? So, I just want them to learn things the right way. And so again, man, it's just, for me, it's just more though about how do you balance that coach and that father piece? Because if I have to err on one side, it's going to always be on the father side, because they're going to need you to be a father much longer than they're going to need you to be a coach.
Their entire life, they're going to need that. And opening those avenues and those bridges and those paths for open communication about things beyond sports. Like sports is just a topic of, hey, you're doing this right now. I know you're doing awesome in baseball. You're out at Arizona. Hey, man, I hope everything will work out for you. But if there's never a level of conversation that goes beyond that, where I'm interested in I'm his fan when it comes to life. I want to know how his relationships are doing. How is he dealing with not having a car? How is he dealing with the weight room versus he's meeting people that don't speak English? Is he learning a second language, and how is that so everything is going to like evolve and help him grow as a person beyond who's paying the checks or what organization he's with. Those things are just not a high priority when it comes to like being available to him, to being able to ask any question. And I think that's something that, I was able to develop with Noah, develop with all my sons as they became teenagers. And now it's just they're not overly dependent on me taking them every place. They're driving now. They got to make decisions of what time they need to leave the party to get home before midnight. Yep. No excuses. Yep. Holding them responsible and accountable. Because these are the same accountability and responsibility levels that you're going to get when you go to Arizona. And now you're supposed to be at a meeting. Well, you and some of the guys go, walk to a mall, and now you're, 10 minutes away,
right,
and you Uber back, but the Uber don't show up for 5 minutes.
Right.
And now that the organization is looking at you, where you're late for a meeting, now you get fined.
All them excuses.
All those excuses, man, they'll fall on deaf ears.
Yep.
Be accountable, be where you're supposed to be early,
yep,
right? If you're on time, you're late. You got to be early to be on time. Like those things we learned at some level of our life of how to be accountable to ourselves, to be accountable to our teammates, to be accountable to the organizations that are paying for our performance. Those things, man, they matter so much more than if my kid strikes out at the Little League, field and stuff like that.
And one of the things that I think the people should hear is that we implemented a long time ago. And when I say we, I'm talking me, Shop, and Billy Baber, is because all of us coach our kids, right? It's hard for a kid to distinguish between when you're being a coach and when you're being dad, right? And so everybody talks about that long drive home after the game and am I still coaching? And then when you get home, and so that's hard. And so one of the things that we implemented a while ago was this idea of, look, I can't always be the one who only is responsible for speaking into my kids. And so Shop will have a conversation with my kids at different times. Baber will have that same conversation. And so sometimes the source has to change, even though the message doesn't change. And so like my encouragement would be for a lot of the dads that's out there, like get you a nice small group of people that your kids will respect as well, because I don't care what happens. They see me and they see that's dad, that's coach. They see you and it's like, that's Mr. Barber. They see that's Mr. Baber. And so the moment something starts to get said is my attention is on, my ears are, and I'm listening and I'm trying to pay attention to what you're saying. And then I'm gonna soak it in. And when it's the same message that they're getting from me or from my wife, then all of a sudden it sinks in. And so I don't care if the message doesn't come from me. What I care about is that it sinks in. Exactly. And that they can then mature and grow and become, good, supportive, responsible young men.
Again, I mean, all our kids, I guess it always starts in the same thing, man. We have kids that are big on faith. They are, they know that, they have a purpose here. It's a passion. Sports is, God gave you a talent. And whether you choose to showcase it and use it for a financial gain or for whatever it is, God has given you ability, but it's still something internally you have to do to grow that ability, to keep on progressing and continue to take that God-given talent and make it something that where you can now turn that back and showcase your faith for the Lord and how much you love him and stuff like that. So, man, I'm so proud of the man you are. And how you showcase that not only to your kids, but to my kids, to Baber's kids, to pretty much anybody who's within ear's length of our voice. Yeah. We keep it very consistent, man. Mindset, toughness, grit. Man, having the opportunity to showcase your ability you're always on.
Always interview.
You always interview. There is no one day
downtime.
There is no one time where like the highlight film. No. I want to see your practice film. I want to see how you practice. I want to hear how your teammates talk about you on a day after a loss. I want to know if when you strike out, do you talk to your teammate on the way back to the dugout, or are you so pissed off that you struck out you ignore your teammate? So those are the little nuances about being a guy in team sports and understanding the mindset of an athlete that I hope young people and young fathers and our listeners here, you're always, it's a 365, 24/7 type interview. And if you're about that business, you're about having that mindset to be a professional athlete or being great at anything, there's certain things you just have to do, right? There's no shortcuts. Man, you got to be dedicated. Eye in the sky don't lie. What your reputation is different between your character, right? You can have a reputation of being a really good ball player, but your character is going to talk about what you do when the cameras ain't on, when nobody's watching. And those are things you got to be really good at. And so
the last thing I would say, probably the dads, especially the ones that coach, is like, and I'll just put it plain, like, love your boys. Like, and this is mainly for boys. But like, it's easy to coach them, and for them to, what they hear is just to be always hard, or to always be driving them to do something. Like, at some point you have to stop. And I always tell them, look, celebrate the wins. Like, don't just pass over them like that's what you're supposed to do and then go right back into the things they're not doing. Celebrate the wins with them. But, man, step back and, like, love them. Hug your boys, man. Like, teach them that it's okay to love and to have emotion. And because if you are a coach and a dad, it's easy for that part to get missed. And then all of a sudden when they're teenagers, you wonder why they don't talk to you, why they keep things from you, why they hide stuff from you. Man, love your boys.
Every team my son has been a part of so far, there's been one or two members from his team who I thought were really good ball players that get to high school and walk away.
Right.
Baseball players, I think, man, he's an awesome third base. I can't wait to see him in high school. And I'm like, I'm looking at the high school team. Where is he at? Dad, he decided not to play. It got too much. It became just
a job.
Yeah, he wasn't having fun anymore.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the football team. So yeah, like you say, man, just keep it fun, keep it cool, keep it collective, and just keep encouraging these young men to be better athletes and be more productive citizens. Just do what you need to do as far as make sure you're putting prioritize the fundamentals and the techniques. You're not always putting on film of your own son, correct him off his own things. You can put on film of anybody. Just watch highlights of anybody and show the right steps he's supposed to take. So then he doesn't take it personally. It's like you're trying to like come down on him because you're the coach, you're the dad. So, man, Kevin, always, man, I appreciate you giving us some of your time, giving us some wisdom, some knowledge. Again, man, this is Shawn Barber, Kevin Lockett. This is the process. The process is always greater than the product. I appreciate your time. God bless. Good evening.